I'm Alice Trigger, and this is my EDAR Assessment 2 Unit 3 and 4 Studio Art program. So I begin by looking at Unit 3, looking at each area of study, and laying them out in a column that states the outcome, the key skills, and the key knowledge. I also do the same for Unit 4. So then I look at assessment tasks. I lay them out in two columns, which has the assessment and the weighting. So you can see at the bottom, I've got the formative assessment, which is a gallery 1. So I just put that in to make up the 4. But obviously that has no weighting. So then we go into scope and sequence. So as you can see, there's a week column, content column, activities column, key skills and key knowledge, and assessment and learning outcomes, which includes formative assessment. So I've highlighted in red the appendices, which are like worksheets and stuff like that. And then there's also links for like Kahoot quizzes and things like that. As you can see, I've also highlighted in different colours. So these highlighted weeks are what the lessons correlate to. So you'll see down in my lesson plans that there'll be a yellow one that correlates to this lesson. So it's also a lot of studio process, as you can see. That also includes key skills and knowledge, and that's relevant to Unit 3 and 4. Alright, so then we go into the lesson plans, and you can see this is the yellow one that correlates to the yellow scope and sequence that was earlier. So I've obviously written this key skills and key knowledge, which is from study design, and I've written my own goals and objectives that I've created. There's also a summary of resources which are available for if there's a substitute teacher or something like that. So I include timing, resources, steps of the lesson, the expected student reactions or responses, the teacher responses, an evaluation or assessment. This evaluation and assessment also includes specific formative assessment. So such as walking around the room and assisting will help the teacher understand who understands the work and who does not. There's also always a closure, which might include something like an exit slip or some sort of reflection. So those are all Unit 3, and then we get into the Unit 4 lessons as well. There's a lot of ICT used as well, which is included with things like Kahoot quizzes that are really good for kids as they get competitive but in a fun manner and learn while they do it. So then it gets into the assessment tasks. So this is the Unit 3, Outcome 3. I chose to make it an oral presentation even though you could do questions or an essay. This also includes visual evidence, so they might do something like a PowerPoint presentation or a visual representation such as a poster. I felt this related more to art. It's also got questions to prompt your thinking, what you need, just to help the students out as much as possible. And obviously there's also a list of things to remember, so things like they have to be from a different time and different place, these two artists, because a lot of the time students will do it as the same as they've misread it. Also looks with the due date, the contribution, and the presentation length. So it then gets down into the rubric, which is quite large. So we look at key knowledge and skills in this one, which create the rest. So this is the formative assessment, which is the gallery worksheet. So they're just looking at 2 different artists and 2 of their artworks from different cultural and historical backgrounds, and it's just a lot of things on the side, such as date it was created, could this date have influenced the work or the artist, what materials have been used. So it's quite a lot of key knowledge. They also have to sketch the artwork, which also includes their drawing skills and working on those. So we get into Unit 4, Outcome 3, where they will complete a SAC, so it's like exam conditions. It just looks at different gallery spaces. They're quite big questions, so they're quite loaded, which this one is 6 marks. We've got the rubric. There's also a section for comments, so in case anything particular needs to be said, there's room to say it. So for the Unit 4 assessment, which is obviously the folio, I've created a checklist just so the students know exactly what they need to submit, which includes questions that prompt them, looking at exploration proposal, potential directions, documentation, and your actual artworks. And they can stick that into their visual diaries at the start and make sure they tick each one off. This one has quite a large rubric as it looks particularly at the exploration proposal and potential directions rubric that was on VCAR. Just adapted it to my own rubric. So after all the assessment, I've also included a student booklet with Unit 3 and 4. This has all the worksheets and things they'll need. So just write their name, student number, class and teacher so it doesn't get lost. These are also where all my appendices are. So some of the worksheets I've used from my last assessment, as they're really good resources even for Unit 3 and 4. So this one just looks at the elements and principles. They draw their own examples instead of getting it given to them. This one looks at an artwork called The Bridging Curve by Grace Cossington Smith, which is an Australian piece. So they're just looking at subject matter, foreground, background, naming everything they see, the elements evident and how they applied, and the principles and how they're used. This is one that I found on a website just about annotating that they can stick into their visual diary just to remember what they need to include. So then we've got the exploration proposal task sheet, which is also from my last assessment, but I thought was a really good resource for this, as obviously they do this in Unit 3. Also looks at what they need to include and lots of questions to prompt their thinking. So it's not just giving them, you know, all the answers, they've got to work it out. Then we've got the criteria. So Appendix E, this is when we're looking at the exploration proposal. So I've actually got an exploration proposal from Top Arts, and they're just going to have a look at that to see how, you know, a really good one is created. We'll make sure we reiterate that there has to be visuals. So then I created just a small work plan. It's got the week, the exploration they choose to do, the work they're going to do on exploration proposal and potential directions, and their design process. So this just helps them plan out what they're doing, just so they're not leaving everything to the last minute. And that obviously goes for the 15 weeks for Unit 3 and then 15 weeks for Unit 4. And they've just got a little glossary creation that they can make. So if they ever get stuck, you know, on writing things out or doing their folio or annotations, they can look at this. So they've got a storyboard here to create as well. This was part of their exploration process and research. This was where they would do, after mind mapping, they would create 6 concepts. So just sketch out 6 ideas in which their ideas could stem from. This is the Starry Night by Vincent van Gogh that was used in an earlier lesson. Then we've got a potential directions worksheet, which looks at what your evaluations need and the criteria that you need, that you'll be marked on, sorry. Then I've just got my justification as to why I have created this task and why I've included certain things in terms of the Victorian Curriculum Assessment Authority. And then I've got all my references at the end. And that's everything. Sorry about the videoing, it wouldn't work on my computer, so hopefully this is okay. Thank you.